Thank you very much for joining us. You're watching The Experts Say. I am your host, Marianne Weischer. Now, just as the name of this show suggests, this is the one show that gives you an opportunity to listen to and to learn from experts in different fields. And our guest in studio today is Mary Waigwa, who is a medical researcher. And she'll be telling us more about what her kind of research is as we go along with the show. Mary, karibu sana.
Thank you so much
to our studio.
Thank you so much.
And I think the one question I want to throw at you, the very first question before we go into everything else, is about what you do. Because when I first heard you're a medical researcher, the first thought that I had is that you're one of those people who wakes up and when you go to work, you go into a lab with a white coat and you put on some, that's a kind of research that you do. But I guess what you're going to be explaining to us is that your research is a lot different from that. And there are very few Kenyans doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about your work, what kind of research that you do.
My medical research really entails I talk to doctors and I talk to patients as well. Sometimes I want to get information which the doctors can't give because they can't get, the line for patient is really long. So I end up
they don't have the time.
Exactly, they don't have the time to explain. So most of the time I end up talking to the patients who really help me understand the problems they're going through. My research really is on cases that cannot be done locally. The patients have to travel all the way
Complicated
to complicated cases. Most of them are kidney related and others are heart. Those are the two areas that I've really concentrated on. Yes.
So your research is more social than scientific, but still within the medical line.
The medical line, exactly.
Okay, to give us a very clear example of what you do, I don't know whether you'd be able to describe for us one of the cases perhaps that you've dealt with, that you've researched and completed.
In the year 2009, I was working on kidney medical research. I did a kidney medical research that was actually aired on air, local tellies. I realized there's a group, there's so many Kenyans traveling abroad, especially to India to get transplants.
Kidney transplants.
Exactly. So I wanted to understand why that transit, why do they have to go all the way? And we have hospitals here, we have big hospitals.
Yeah, why can't it be done here?
So I embarked on that research and I realized that one of the reasons why they wanted to travel there was it was cheap to have a transplant done there. It was really cheap. And also, besides it being cheap, the doctors there, I understand they do a perfect job. I'm not saying we don't do a perfect job, but
technically that is what you're saying, that our doctors here don't do as good a job as Indian doctors
do. Yes. Yeah. So I really wanted to know why, so I had to travel all the way. Yes.
To India.
To India.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's one of the main researches that you've done.
Yes, but also last year I did a heart. I also realized there are so many kids being born with congenital heart disease. Exactly. And some of them cannot be done locally. So I wanted to know, still I did a research and I realized that there's so many kids traveling to India to get their hearts mended or something. So I traveled with a group of 3 kids. They had a really complicated, these were really complicated cases. And I was there for 2 months and I was able to see how good the Indian doctors
see the difference
exactly
between there and here.
There and here. And trust me, it was good. It was good. It was a very good experience.
Okay.
Yes.
2 questions. So how do you go about your research? You talk to, like you said, you try to talk to doctors, but like you have said, a lot of the times the doctors will not have the time to invest to talk to you, so
exactly.
talk to patients.
So I'd rather talk to the patients who are willing to give you the exact position they are in, yes, the situation they are in, and the problems also they are facing, the challenges that they face. Sometimes you find that once your child or a patient has been diagnosed, they live on drugs to keep them alive. And sometimes these drugs are very expensive. So the families sometimes then it reaches a point and they're like, gosh, what do we do next? So I wanted to know exactly how is the government really helping? Are there organizations that are really helping? And I came to realize that although the government is really doing its work, there's still that gap. There's still that.
There's still a lot that's wanting.
There's still a lot that's wanting, and there's so much there's so many things that we can do to improve on medical
facilities and expertise.
Yes.
So what you do is you talk to doctors, talk to patients and other relevant experts and document.
Yes, I document. I have a documentary on that kidney research I did, and I also have that for the heart. For the heart, yes. So I'm still working with doctors from India. Like I've organized 2 camps for free, and I was so shocked by the number of people who came for checkups and all that. People are sick. People don't have money. The charges here is, I'm sorry to say, but they're extravagant. Not so many people can afford. So every time they hear there's a free camp, they always rush. The numbers are crazy. Sometimes you are like, oh my God, I wish you were charging at least some amount. But you see, you cannot turn them away. You have to go through. So most of the time our camps are for 5 days. Yeah, between 3 or 5 days.
The medical camps.
Yes.
Okay. That's a research that you do. You mentioned that you had the opportunity, I must say a very rare opportunity, to spend 2 months
in India
with doctors in India.
Yes.
Tell me about that trip, how it went and what you gained out of it.
Strangely, I didn't know any doctors there. So the team that I went with are the ones who introduced me to these doctors. So I told them what I do. They were impressed because every time you see a camera, you're like, okay, this must be a journalist. Reporter. Yes. But they used to call me, oh, the journalist is around. And they were so open. They wanted me to have a look at what they're doing so that I can bring it back to our country, so that even people, instead of you straining or waiting forever, you can actually travel and get sorted and come back very fast. And besides the surgeries, besides the heart thing that had taken me there, I was able to see them operate on other patients who had big tumors that were removed. I was able to see a head surgery. So you
watched the actual surgery?
Yes, yes, and it was. The longest I took in the theater was 8 hours.
You sat in the theater for 8 hours.
And by the time I was hitting 5 hours, I was like, I told them, I can't take it anymore. They were like, no, you've started.
You had better finish.
So that by the time you're telling people that you are there,
been through it.
Yes,
you really have been through
and then you can understand that surgeons really
what they go through.
Yes,
I think we underestimate when they say 8 hours.
Yes, and surprisingly, after that 8 hours, they only had a break for 30 minutes, and they were in for another
one.
Yes, but the second one, I only went for 2 hours, and I was like, I'm going to sleep.
10 hours.
I went to sleep. Yes. And I'm telling you, they really do
a lot.
A lot. Yes. Normally in India, I realized most of the surgeries, a doctor can do 2 surgeries in a day. But you see, in Kenya, a surgeon can do 1 surgery and go rest. There they don't know what resting is. One of them told me 2 hours good for me for rest. The rest of the hours I'm busy doing surgeries. Yes.
So what difference did you see? Because I think you're one of the rare people who's through that had an opportunity to interact and even observe the work of doctors there and here. What are the differences?
The doctors there are much kinder, and you know, when you're told about your condition here, it shocks you. But there, they tell you you're not the only person. I've done this. I've seen 100 patients like you, even more complicated than your case, and they're very okay. Sometimes they even introduce you to such people. So it also gives you confidence. Yes. And the doctors there are very friendly. But okay, here I understand we have very few doctors. So the number of patients they see is quite...
It's higher than the number of doctors and average, the number of patients an average doctor sees in India.
Yes, in India, the system of learning, the system of education, let's just say that, is very good. The government supports free education. That's from preschool to high school, and I also hear they also offer free. They give scholarship. I think they give scholarship to the bright students who end up doing. Most of them end up doing medicine.
Okay.
Yes, and I also think the government really encourages them to do medicine. It being that India's population is very high, so the higher the number, the higher the patients. So the doctors there, so young people there have a very good ground of learning. And also the nursing schools, I love the nursing schools. They're always packed, By the time these students graduate, they are fixed all over. You don't see, the hospitals are not like, in a ward, here you can get a whole ward has 2 nurses looking at all the patients. There, the nurses are so many. You find them in a desk studying. So patients don't have to cry, to press a button all the time, and nobody is really answering on their call. They're
enough to attend to all of them.
Yeah, they're enough to attend to all of them. So I'd encourage our government to open up that. There are those people who would love to do medicine, but they can't afford it.
It is quite expensive. Yeah.
And another thing, just because somebody didn't get an A, it doesn't mean that that person is turned ahead. Surprisingly, that person might be end up being a very good surgeon, or a surgeon for that matter. Yes, I love medical stuff, and people think I'm a doctor, but
perhaps you shall. You are an aspiring doctor. So what you're saying, one of the key differences from what you're saying is the numbers.
Yes,
just by the numbers of doctors in relation to the population.
Yes.
Then that's the one advantage that they have.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I think we have about 3 cardiothoracic surgeons in Kenya. 3 cannot handle the number of patients who have heart disease. Exactly. We have neurosurgeons. They're less than 10. The number of kidney patients every day there's a big number being diagnosed with kidney problem. Most of them end up the doctors just tell them, you really need to get a transplant. Because you see, if they come from a poor family, their diet really matters. They can't afford to eat the right diet. They can't even afford to go for dialysis, which to me still is very high. Even that 9K is still on the highest side. Dialysis in India is 3K. 3K. At least somebody...
3K per session.
Yes. That is an amount that anybody can afford.
So you're saying currently in Kenya it's 9,000 shillings per session?
Yes, that's in Kenyatta. But you see, Kenyatta cannot handle everybody is referred to Kenyatta. If you dialysis enter Kenyatta, so you find that the pipeline, there's a very long line. By the time they put you on that pipeline, you have to wait for 3 months or 6 months. By the time you wait for that long, the kidneys have all gone. So most of the patients end up having a transplant. But it's something that can be worked on. I think we can either equip our hospitals, upgrade our district hospitals to a much greater... Yes, and something else I noticed in India, they've really invested in medicine. Their equipment, they have superb equipment. Yes, and also there's a particular doctor who told me the government really supports the best of the best doctors. They go out, probably the US, UK or Canada, they learn and they come back.
I see.
They go there, train, and then they come back.
Yeah.
Once they come back, they train others. It's like a network. This guy has come up with so much information. He shares.
He has to share with
yes,
the people
and he also
him.
trains these doctors. So it's hard for you to see somebody travel from India to the UK, but it's easier for you to find somebody traveling from UK to India to get treatment. Yes,
because of the cost.
Yes.
So that from that thread, that is where we are failing in Kenya. That the experts we have just remain where they are.
Exactly.
They do not go for perhaps higher training, and then they do not teach others under them. So they end up sort of monopolizing this knowledge that they have.
Yes, that's the right word. They monopolize, and I think it's time they become open.
Yes.
The old ones who have more experience, they should be
teach.
Yeah, they should be calling these students, having them take tea, bring their notebooks, explain something to them. You know, it also helps. It also gives these students confidence. I was so impressed. There's a young guy who was, I think, 22 years. He opened somebody's head. And I was just thinking,
You're just watching.
I wish I was the one doing that. And he was so courageous. Because the doctor who was training, that's an older doctor who was training this guy, was encouraging this. Yes, do this. Yes, don't. If you did that, this would happen. Maybe the patient would get a cardiac arrest. And I really did enjoy. I really enjoyed. I wish I would see that in Kenya.
Yes.
If that happens, but I wish I would see
that. That is your wish.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a short break. Then we'll be back. We'll be taking a breather for a few minutes, but we'll be right back.